Everybody, welcome back. This is XL 10 Minute Leaders Live. My name is Graham Brown. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, you're a leader of any sort, any stripes, you know the difference between working in your business and working on your business, the difference between running your company and your company running you. So to help us understand that a little bit better and where we're going wrong and leading us out of the trouble that a lot of business owners face is Erin McCullough. Erin joining us in the studio today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to have you here. So there is a big difference between running a business and a business running you, and we're going to understand that. And I think as well, maybe people don't understand so much that they're in that situation, the entrepreneur myth, if you like. So Erin, we've got 10 minutes together. Are you ready to do this?
I'm ready.
Let's do this then. So let's do the business cards first. What does it say on yours, Erin?
It says self-proclaimed joy slinger.
Joy slinger.
Yeah.
Like a gunslinger. What does that mean? These are the business cards I like, Erin. The ones that people say, they don't just say, that's interesting. They say, tell me more.
Yeah. So I sling joy. I'm teaching people how to create what I call impenetrable joy, which is no longer being beholden to or at the mercy of people or circumstances to dictate whether you have a good day or a bad day, or for that matter, a good or bad life. So that's why it says joy slinger.
Do we put ourselves in situations where we are beholden to other people's agendas? And
yeah, I think most people feel that way, right? They're like, that person said this and that made me angry, or that person's driving slow and that made me honk my horn. And right. I teach people how to be responsible for the emotional experience they're having so they can choose which one they have. Whereas I think most people are sort of on this roller coaster of life where it's like, this is happening, that's happening, and I'm in reaction to all the things. And so when we are in reaction all the time, it doesn't feel so great. But when we can be intentional about what we want to create in our lives, that feels empowering.
Why do we allow ourselves to do this? It doesn't seem common sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really our fault because we are conditioned to think this way. Well, I don't know about you, but most people I know, and myself included, we sort of focus on the things that aren't working out versus all the like millions of things that are working out. We're sort of like stuck on the like handful of things that didn't quite go the way that we were hoping. And then we go down the rabbit hole of adding on the other things that aren't going that way also. And then that's the experience we're having. And so I teach people how to not do that. It's just, part of it is conditioning, part of it is your mind. So your mind takes in all this information and it wants to organize it in a way that it's useful for the future. Unfortunately, people and circumstances are very nuanced and complex. And so this way of thinking, while it works for don't stick your hand on the hot stove, you don't ever want to do that again, it doesn't work for these more complex situations, dealing with clients, dealing with employees, or yourself, or your spouses, or, family members. And so we get stuck in this like line of thinking and thinking that formula of, this, then that is appropriate for all facets of life. And it's really not appropriate when it comes to individuals and, business and just outcomes in general.
You coach business leaders. If you were to summarize all your years of experience into the top 3 examples of this, the symptoms when people will maybe express that, but they may not be realizing that, again, that they are at the mercy of other people, other things, agendas, and things are running them. What are typically the things that business leaders say?
First and foremost, there's not enough time in the day, right? There's not enough time to get everything done. I have all these things that need to be done. And most business owners and leaders have a difficult time prioritizing like what absolutely needs to be done versus that like ongoing to-do list of things that need to be done. And so they get overwhelmed. So that's the second thing. They're overwhelmed by just their position, their responsibility, their family a lot, like they would love to be able to just put 16 hours a day into work and not have to worry about the spouse and the kids, although they want to spend time with them. This other thing is just so captivating. And, depending on how old the person is, there are, certain, age groups where, when they're building their business and say they're in their 30s, they just, maybe they don't have a family or spouse yet. They're just 100% consumed. And then they get married and have kids and they're like, wait, I need like 8 more hours to navigate all these things. And then the other piece is just the level of stress that people are under. They don't recognize. So most people who start a business or in a leadership position, they're highly capable humans. They do a lot in a shorter period of time. They, get the job done. That's why they decided to start a business. That's why they're in a leadership position, is because they're highly effective people already. However, there are so many hours in a day, and you can only be so effective with those hours, especially if you're overwhelmed and stressed out. And then that typically leads to a little bit of anxiety, like, I just can't take on another thing, and now you're getting pressure from on the personal side. You're maybe getting some pressure. There's a, project going on that has some time constraints. Then there's pressure coming from all directions, and it feels very overwhelming, understandably. And so we have to recognize that while they are, typically type A, go, 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 and can do all the things, they don't need to all be done in a day. And so recognizing those things and some of that, mind stuff that we were talking about, where, prioritizing and understanding that everybody's not the same and everything's not the same, and sort of rewiring and refiring some neurons so that they have a different brain experience, so they don't feel that overwhelmed all the time. So that's pretty much what I'm dealing with.
The base of this really is a real fear, isn't it? That fear of missing out, fear of whatever you like, insert your general fear of other people's opinions and so on. As entrepreneurs, you talked about the type A personalities, for example. When faced with these challenges, whether they're being overwhelmed or that classic lack of hours in the day, the natural response to that, or the conditioned response to that, is to hack it, isn't it? Is that, well, maybe I can find more hours in the day. And so the first response to I'm overwhelmed is, well, maybe I can wake up 2 hours earlier, or maybe I can wake up an hour earlier, or maybe I can optimize my time here. And it's not dealing with the problem, isn't it? It seems that seems to be the way that business leaders, execs, type A's deal with it, is actually you're just not working hard enough, or you're not efficient enough. And it seems to me that what you're suggesting is, for example, it doesn't work for everybody. Is you're backing out a little bit and saying, hang on a second, right? That's just a race to the bottom there. What are the wins then for those people who seem to be in some way addicted to the busyness and the activity of it all?
Well, I just want to say it's not your fault if you're feeling like you're in that cycle of things, because it's kind of what we're taught, right? It's like everything, this is my big topic lately, like we are so taught to get validation externally, right? So it's good job, you get the trophy, you get the raise, you get the position, you get the car, you get the whatever the thing is. That's all external. When you can be the architect of your internal landscape, meaning you get to decide how you're feeling and what you're feeling, then you can change. It changes everything. When you stop the rat race of trying to amass things and collect externally, and recognize that that happiness that everybody is seeking is an external thing. What I want you to seek is joy. Joy is an internal experience that you can cultivate daily. And when you cultivate that daily, then the experience that you have is intentional, first and foremost, and what you want it to be, versus being beholden to people circumstances, which is I need to have the car to feel good about myself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
comparing myself to my neighbor, right? So all of that is external validation. I build up their internal validation where they begin to understand who they are on a deep level so that they can understand that they don't need to keep up with the Joneses. They don't need to
Mm.
keep up with their neighbors or anybody else that's in their industry or what have you, or position. They just need to understand on a deep level what actually makes them feel good and go towards those things. That doesn't negate, success or making money. I love those things too. Those are available as well. But at what cost are we doing
Mm.
these things? And so that's really what I'm after.
There's a lot of work there, isn't there? There's a lot of difficult
Well,
conversations and questions. And there's a lot of
yeah.
unraveling, I feel. Because
Mhm.
once you start to ask those questions, for example, why do I need that car? When you really ask the question and it unravels, then it doesn't just stop there, does it? You start asking a lot of questions about not only the things that you collect in your life, but why you're collecting them, who's driving them, and your relationship with work, your relationship with other people, and so on. There's a lot of work there. I feel things fall apart, but I think in a very beautiful way that, eventually you get back to joy. You get back to what it is that really you're here to do, your story told on your terms, if you like, as opposed to, working for the man or whatever it may be, even if that man is yourself.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that a lot of entrepreneurs think that they go into business to be this free maverick lifestyle type, storyteller of your own destiny. But ultimately they end up just with buying themselves a job, right?
Yeah.
And,
A hundred
they end
percent.
up working harder and the vacations are terrible,
Yeah.
all of that, right? So I think it's really important to ask these questions. And it's great to have people who will do that with you
Yeah.
and be that sounding board and, help you think through these things. So, Erin, it's great to have this conversation. I think it's much needed, especially now, 18 months into this pandemic. And just signing off on that is that what have you seen has changed in 18 months in people's minds? Have you seen a groundswell of questions being asked by people now since we've been in lockdown, or we've sort of questioned work and travel and so on?
Yeah, I mean, couple of things. One is people started to question, like, do I really like doing what I'm doing? I read some phenomenal number, I couldn't quote it now, about how many people changed industry, changed
Mm,
position, changed, right? It gave everybody like a moment to pause and go, wait a minute, am I doing something that's meaningful to me? And what I truly believe is that we each have something, a unique something that we have to offer this world based on our experience, our talents, and our personality. And I
mm,
think it gave people a moment to pause and go, wait a minute, am I, and do I have meaning and purpose? I mean, gosh, it doesn't get, you talk about fear. Like most people's biggest fear is dying. So,
mm,
like, not only did it level the playing field, everybody was available for this, right? And
mm,
now it's the worst fear all of a sudden. But what I want to say is it's not about that. Fear is fear. There's not a worse or a better or a, it like there's two emotions. There's fear and love. This clearly most people's experience was certainly fear in this whole deal. And this isn't the last thing that's going to happen. So again, like people think these things are
mm,
situational. I think like being stressed out or overwhelmed is because that person made me overwhelmed, or that project or that job or that boss. And what I want to tell people is that those things are latent in you. And so the pandemic brought them out, certainly to the
mm,
forefront. And there'll be other things, because that's the one thing that we sort of agree on, is that this life is like constantly changing. And so I think most people's experience is that while we understand that on an intellectual level, what's happening internally for most people is that they're trying to like hold on to some sort of ground, and it doesn't exist. And
mm,
that's that whole external thing. We We want to make the cash because we want to have security, this idea of security. There isn't any security. And if this last year and a half didn't show you that, there's other ways that it's going to be
Yeah.
shown. And
Yeah,
that's
right.
the
It's a
thing.
lesson.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Over and over again.
Time to learn. Yeah, Erin McCullough, everybody. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Where do we find out more about you?
I think the best place to find out more about me is either Instagram. My handle is Erin, ErinMacLLC. My website is on there as well, or my website is Erin, ERIN-MAC.com.
Erin, thank you for joining us today. Really
Yeah,
enjoyed
thank
that.
you for having me. I did as well.